Hello there, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me today. I do hope you're well. Here we are back in Planet Zoo, and this is our new project. This is a town project. So this is going to be an entire town, possibly a city, depends how big it gets. Entirely built within the game Planet Zoo, but I'm not going to be putting in animals. Or certainly not many. I might find room for a little petting zoo or something within the town. That is a possibility, but it's not the main aim of this project. I just want to experiment with what sort of buildings I can make within the game, and whether I can actually make them look good or not. Quite frankly, it's just something I've always enjoyed doing in these games is making buildings. And when you're building a zoo, a lot of the time you're just building habitat buildings, and it can get a bit repetitive and not very creative. So I'm really trying to use my creativity and see what I can come up with. So this is what we did in our first episode. I built this this lovely county hall. I'm very pleased with how this turned out. I think it looks suitably grand for a county hall. Lots of nice decoration, lots of detail, like these new decal pieces on the walls here, lots of little sort of cracks in the pavement outside, that kind of stuff. So yeah, very pleased with how that turned out. So once I'm done with that, I decided I wanted to start thinking about the road layout at the front here. Now you'll see there's a large round structure here with some water inside it. So my thinking was I might want to put a roundabout somehow out the front here. And my first thought with the roundabout was, well, because it's outside the county hall, it might be an impressive one. So I built this surround using the usual technique to create a round structure like this. So these are, what is this? North African plaster brick, and it's just a repeated pattern, a flat one at the bottom and a few angled ones. And on the inside, an African sculptured gorilla head. What? Hang on, what is this? It's something that's got a, yeah, it's one of these. It's got one of these sort of sculpted pieces on the side there, but it had the correct texture on the back. So the thinking was that I would do that, and then I'd put a barrier inside it, which I've done, and fill it with water. So there were two things that I don't like about this. One, I couldn't get the water high enough. The barrier is right up to the top of this this solid piece here, but for some reason the water in the game, it goes in sort of 1 meter segments, so the next meter up is obviously going to be too tall, and I didn't want to make this any taller, and that, I don't know, it just didn't look very good. Plus I didn't actually like the texture that I managed to create using these brick pieces either. And in the end I just thought the whole thing looked pretty crap. So, so that doesn't last long, but I wanted to show you what I was thinking about. And now eventually, and I'll be honest with you here, I've done quite a lot of building in this already before I actually do these recordings. So I do end up with a roundabout here eventually, but that won't be for a few episodes time yet. Because what I do first is I put a road in, and I do some buildings along the side of the road here, and then only when I start thinking about what I'm doing over this side here, I redo the roads and end up putting a roundabout in. But you'll have to wait a little while before that actually happens, I'm afraid. So I'm going to load up my next save point and show you what I did instead of a roundabout. So let me just get that done. So this is what I came up with. I wanted to put a nice angled bit of road. I didn't want my town to just be like a grid. I know some countries, particularly America, do everything in grids. That is not how English towns are designed, and in fact they tend to be quite messy at times, English towns, because there's a lot of history, there's a lot of age in most of our towns. So you find that there are small roads, sort of all sorts of weird angles. There are roads that are pedestrianised these days because they're just too small and old to actually be functional with modern traffic. You know, obviously some roads get replaced, but yeah, nothing is done to any sort of pattern these days, or indeed ever in this country. It's just years and years and years of new roads being connected in, and and all sorts. So it's a bit of a mess, quite frankly, our road system at times. But obviously in the game here, I just want it to look interesting. So this is what I came up with. So I put a road coming off at an angle here. Continued the paving as well over this side. So what I've done with the paving, because I've got these curves here, I can use the same. So I can just highlight this. It's all one building at the moment, and I can just copy that curve structure and just move it over here so that I don't have to redo the curves every time, and that's very helpful. And the pavements as well, I'm going to continue using the same pattern on the pavements. It's not perfect, of course, because you end up with this sort of thing going on. I do make this look a little bit better, actually. You can do it by just sinking some very slightly lower, so you don't end up with such a jagged pattern of them meeting. You can make it a bit more of a straight line along here, which you'll get to see. I had to do the same. Now, where was it that I had to do the same? Where am I thinking? Oh yes, I had to do it here, you see. So on this corner, because you can't, obviously these patterns are only square, or if they're the curved ones, it's this curved piece here, which is obviously an outwards curve like that. So to do a corner like this, ideally you need a piece with an inwards curve, which doesn't exist. So instead you end up with you have to do a couple of pieces like that. In fact, there's a third one there to fill in that little gap. So that's the only way I can do these corners with this exact piece. It looks okay, you know. You can get away with it. It's better than it not being there at all. So these pavements I will probably continue through the whole town. The road at this stage, I wasn't going to be putting road markings on the road. I just thought it was just going to be a lot of effort for not a lot of reward. But actually, again, I do end up changing my mind, and I do put white road markings on, and it does actually look much, much better. And I think when I decided to do that, it was when I ended up putting a roundabout in here. And there were two reasons why I end up putting a roundabout in here. One, because I wanted a roundabout, and it just, I don't know, it just sort of worked with what I ended up doing here. But also, I realised that these pavement pieces, there was no way I could fill this corner here with the pavement pieces. Obviously it's just too small an area and too sharp a point to do that. And so what I would have had to do is fill in this corner here with something. And I was thinking, well, you know, you could put a flower bed or whatever, but that's just ridiculous. You wouldn't have that in real life. If there's going to be something here, it would be that maybe if I had a road coming in here, and so I sort of automatically ended up creating a roundabout, and so instead of having this as a triangle, it becomes a roundabout. But that, like I say, that will happen in a few episodes time at least. Maybe 2 more episodes away that I actually get around to doing this road junction here. So anyway, for this episode, what I wanted to do was I wanted to challenge myself with shape as opposed to necessarily design, which was on this corner here. So I've put this angled bit of road in, and immediately I thought, right, I want to do something opposite the county hall on this corner here. So one building that comes along here and around the corner. So that is what we're going to be looking at today. I think in this episode I'll probably do this building, and in fact there is another little building that goes in at the end. No, in fact there's 2, sorry. There's a larger building that goes in here and then a small one here, and I think I will probably do all 3 of these buildings in this episode because this first building is quite tricky. The second building is quite straightforward, so there's no sort of stages for that. 1 second it's not there and then it's there. The third building, it was a bit more complicated, but unfortunately I accidentally recorded over a save game, and so there is no save stages of me building it. Unfortunately, again, it's not there, and then in the next cut it will be there in its entirety, and I'm going to have to tell you exactly what it is and how I did it. But there we go. So let's crack on with this first building here. So it wasn't going to be a particular themed building, this one. It was going to be an office building, so nothing too exciting, just an office building. So let me load up my next save point. Okay, so I decided to use the opportunity of having this corner here to make an interesting shape to the building, to have this round tower on the corner here. It's just something I'm sort of trying things out. This was my first attempt. Obviously, this is nowhere near finished, but this was my basic shape of the building, just keeping it interesting. So this is it's a couple of different buildings. You've got the front bit there, and then you've got the back bit, and you've got a side bit here as well. So yeah, because it's a very odd shape, so it's quite a tricky one to put together. You can't do it all in one building because it just doesn't all match up. Yeah, so then you've got that bit as one building as well. So yeah, so it's pretty tricky. I think the tower, yeah, the tower has got, oh no, the tower's connected to this bit with some of the roof attached, because again the roof is obviously it's these square panels, but you can't do them all as one building. Again, you have to separate off quite a few of them, so there's quite a lot of different buildings all in one there. So try to keep a sort of a modern look, so you know, brand new brickwork, brand new plaster work, nice dark windows, very modern looking. I do wish there were more doors and windows in the game. There's really not a lot of choice for design when it comes to windows and doors, so you have to be quite creative if you can. In fact, something that I am going to do, and I will do I think in this episode, which I do with the third building over here, is quite a clever idea actually, which is something that they put into the game recently, where you can use the media boards. So these boards here, stuff like this, and these screens, you can actually put these on and put your own images on. So what you can do is, in my case, download images of doors or windows and use them as doors and windows. So that is something that I'm going to be doing a fair bit of, I think, in the town, but we'll get to that when I use it, which I do in the third building over here. But yeah, so this was my first stage. These walls were too blank at this point. I liked the white with the brickwork, but this was too empty. I needed more on here. I can't remember if I actually end up extending the building sideways as well. I seem to recall it becomes longer than just two pieces here. I thought I moved it bigger, but I might be wrong with that. I can't quite remember. It's been a little while since I actually built this. Yeah, so there we go. So that's that was my first basic structure. Now what I will also be doing in the town obviously is sort of not backstage areas, but sort of back alleys and back entrances. So you do end up with a back entrance on here, and I think I put some of the pathway along here, but I don't really do much backstage stuff yet, and that's the case for all of the buildings that I end up with around here. What I'll probably do is sort of concentrate more on the fronts of the buildings, and then at some point come along and work on the back areas of sort of a whole chunk of buildings at the same time, because they'll all have the same little alleyway sort of connecting them together and whatever. So yeah, so that's my plan, but again I'll explain all of that as I go along. Right, let's move on and see what I do next. Okay, so there's quite a lot more detail on the building now. So you can see I wanted to get some more detailing on the white panels. They were too bland before, so I've used these lovely pieces. What are these? I don't know how you pronounce that. Is that a coin? A coin? I don't know. Anyway, you know what I mean. Those pieces there, they are really good because you can colour them as well. I think, is that colourable? Yes, it's colourable. So they're really, really versatile pieces. So I've used them down the sides. I also then wanted to use this new stone. This is a new texture of stone, the European rustic stone wall. Absolutely love this texture. It's such a nice looking piece, really, really detailed bits of stone. So I wanted to use that along the bottom. So you can see I've done that all the way along the bottom. I haven't done it on the sides. It's kind of something that they've put on at the front to make the front of the building look better. Also did round pieces on the tower here. So these are separate building pieces again. Yeah, they just, actually that top one is part of the building, whereas these two bottom ones aren't, because they stick out a bit more. Just thought, again, this wall just needed more. It needed more texture, needed something, and most buildings, certainly in England, they have like a trim at the bottom. They have a trim at the top, which again, I think this wasn't on in the last segment, so I put this simple trim along the top of the building as well. And then they also have them to sort of cut the sections up going vertically as well. So again, I've just used this basic trim here and a little one of these concrete pillar tops. I've just used it as a window ledge. So this piece here is just a classic roof trim, and it just kind of separates up the levels of the building nicely, and I think that works pretty well. I've done a couple of lights. Actually no, one light. So we have a light here. This is actually it's a street lamp, and I've just sunken it right into the building, so it looks like a sort of a nice modern light that just sticks straight out the wall and lights up the door. And I've also put a little security camera on here, so whatever you know, the owners of the building have decided that it's you know, they want a bit of security, so that's on there. Managed to get a couple of benches out the front with a bin. The best I can do with these is obviously the pathway is sunk down underneath here. I don't know if I'll be able to show you it or not, but well, yeah, just about. So that's is that the pathway in there? It's hard to see it, but yeah, that's the pathway, isn't it? Just underneath there, which is why these are slightly sunk down into the ground. Obviously you can see the bottom there. That's all you can do with this sort of thing. You can't perfect it, you can't get it just perfect up to the right height. So yeah, again, you know, you just have to do your best. A little bit of detailing. So this, again, this lovely decal. So whenever I use this white limestone look with brickwork around it, there's going to be some of these bits on here because they just look amazing. They really do. So there's a few bits of those. I obviously hadn't extended the building to the left here. I thought I made it wider. It might have been that I had it wider to start with and then shrank it down because I didn't want it to look symmetrical to this side. I think that was probably what I was thinking of. Detailing again out on the pathways here, and obviously I've started a bit of work with some lamps out here as well. The lamps do change, but not for a few episodes time. I realised I was putting too many, they were too close together, so you do eventually end up with less lamp posts, because once they're stretched out down here and across here and eventually all the way down here, there was too many. They just looked a bit too crowded, so you do end up with some less lamp posts. Another security camera on the side there, and then as we come around the back here, again, just a little bit of decal detailing back here, and this is the back entrance with another little light over it. So at some point this will become a proper sort of alleyway. My thinking is that there'll be buildings back here, that not every building is going to be on a road basically, so there'll be buildings back here that are only accessible down these little alleyways and things, and then there might be some wider sort of pathways, something more grand and impressive. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. I didn't do anything here because I knew I wanted to put a building that went directly onto this wall here, something in this space, which is why I haven't bothered detailing this end piece here. So I think that just about does it actually for this building. So it's pretty straightforward, but I kind of like the look of it. It's got a good number of textures, but not too many. I didn't want to overflow it with different textures. I mean, you've got a few because you've got limestone, you've got brick, you've got this lovely stonework, and I suppose technically these big brick pieces are also sort of a plaster or concrete pattern. So yeah, there's a few textures there, but I don't think it's too over the top. It looks nice and modern, which is what I wanted. So I could quite easily see that as a nice sort of modern office building. There's no names or anything on this. Some of the buildings will get names, so if the whole building is owned by one company, for example, I might actually put the company name on it. A building like this might have 2 or 3 different companies owning different offices inside it, so there's no big names. And again, there's only so much detailing you can do in the game. Again, the signs and things really are not very good for doing writing. Certainly these letter pieces are awful. I mean, they're good for what they do, but there's just not any variety of lettering. There's nothing big, there's nothing small. If you want to do small stuff, you have to do it on signs, and none of these signs are generic enough. The only generic one you've got is this one here, this sort of silver thing, which I do use when I have to. But generally, yeah, there's just not enough signage in the game to do decent varieties for buildings and stuff. But there we go. Again, you know, you have to work with what you've got. So I'm pretty happy with that building. So let's move on again. I think that was it for that building. There may be a little bit more detailing, possibly some aircon units or something, can't remember. Or the next cut might be the next building along. I can't remember off the top of my head. So let's load it up and take a look. Well, there we go. As you can see, there is another building next door now. So again, it's a pretty simple design. So you have this very basic brick structure. So this is a painted brick wall. So it's obviously bricks that have been painted over at some point. Again, brick windows, so nice and simple. Different windows down on the ground floor. This is a great piece. I use this quite a lot. Unfortunately, again, it's one of these pieces. I wish there were lots of different versions of this, because it's a very tall piece, and it would be nice if there were smaller versions of it and ones with different patterning and detailing and stuff, but there isn't. So again, I just have to use what I've got. And when you've got a big building like this doesn't look too over the top. You know, obviously it's the same as I've used over here, and I do use it on other ones as well, because it's just a great piece. It is a great piece, and it is very English as well. You do get this around the tops of a lot of our buildings, so it certainly does work. So this is Ink Insurance Incorporated. I thought that was quite a fun name. So very simple sign, just one of these generic, you know, sort of silver signs. So it's a nice modern sign, because insurance is quite a modern concept, isn't it? So down on the ground here, I wanted to do a corner door. Now this worked out a lot harder than it was going to be originally. For some reason, I just couldn't get everything to match up. I love the idea of having this lovely sort of glass piece here. So this is one of these huge arbor, what's it, classic arbor arch quadrant, yeah. So it creates a big dome, but I just wanted to use one of them, so I've had to sort of sink it right down in the ground here. And then I had to use a corner piece here. Originally I wanted all this to be glass as well, and you just couldn't do it. The glass pieces just didn't work, unfortunately. So that's what I ended up with. And then we've got a door on here at a jaunty angle, and then a nice sort of iron glass canopy sunk on there as well. So yeah, it was sort of the best I could do with what I had. I want a bit of modern wooden sort of groundwork in there as well. And other than that, that's basically the whole thing. So at the front here as well, I've just put in a little bit of fencing and a couple of flower pots. Now this is something, again, you do get this a lot in England, where there are pavements or public areas and there are windows, whether whether it's an office or housing or whatever. Generally there will be some sort of barrier to stop people reaching these windows, because unfortunately in England, people walking along, they bang on windows. Drunk people out at the weekend will smash windows, and so if they can just put a barrier up to stop people getting to the windows, that's what they do. Unfortunately, it's just part of English culture. Unfortunately, it's not pleasant, but a lot of the times you will see this sort of thing. Obviously, I'm not going to do that everywhere. I just thought this particular building, they've decided to put a little barrier up, but to at least decorate it with some nice flowers to make it look nice. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do in this game, or in this project, is try and just, every building's got its own story. That's what I'm trying to sort of create. So this building has been taken over by Ink Insurance Incorporated. They probably put on all this fancy glasswork here to make it look modern, and then they've probably done this as well to protect their asset. And that's it for this building. That's it. There will be more detail. In fact, I do some more, I think, in the next cut. Because again, this is that lovely brickwork that I can use the decal pieces on, and I think I do some aircon units up on the roof as well. And what I'll probably find as I go through, as I come up with more sort of creative ways of detailing certain buildings, I may well then go back and add detailing to these buildings that I've already built. So whenever I do that, I will try and remember and point stuff out to you, but it might mean that you know, me pointing these things out might be a little bit sporadic at times, because I'll be going back to previous projects and saying, oh look, what, you know, I've added this to this building, or something like that. But yeah, so that's that building. So again, it's going to be variety as well. That's something that I really want to work on in this place. It's sort of having the same theme. So the idea that a lot of these buildings like this are their old buildings, so this probably regularly gets repainted, maybe, you know, get some nice modern windows put on it at some point, but it's an ancient building. You know, this was probably built 100 years ago, probably more. You know, same as the county hall. Whereas something like this next door might be where an old one has got knocked down and it's a completely new building that's been rebuilt. So I'm kind of trying to create a bit of a story for the town as well as I go along. But anyway, let's move on. I think there might only be one more cut actually for this episode, which is a building I put in here, which I'm really pleased with actually, and I'm really annoyed that I didn't get a couple of save points of it as I was building. I didn't create enough, and then unfortunately when I did do one, I then accidentally saved over the top of it. So yeah, I'm a complete idiot, but hopefully I can at least tell you what I've done and how, and you'll be hopefully impressed with it, because it is a really nice little building actually. So let me load that up, and I think that's our next save point. And here we go. We have Charlie's Cafe. I'm really pleased with how this has turned out. So I wanted to create a quirky cafe, a little sort of corner cafe here. So I've left a gap, so there's going to be a little alleyway that comes down here. And I decided to make it a nice pink building. I really want to come up with variety of colorings and things, because obviously every time someone takes over a new building, certainly when it's a small one like this, they may well invest in painting the whole building to sort of match the color that they want to project for whatever business they're in. So this guy, he's called Charlie. He's obviously got a little cafe moved in here, so he's come along and he's painted all this lovely brickwork pink. Why not? So what I've done here, this is what I was talking about with the screens. You can see this window here. I think this looks absolutely fantastic. So what I've done, I've managed to find a nice picture of an interior of a cafe, and it's just on one of these projection screens. So we have what is it? An 8-meter projection screen, which you put there. You put the glass window pieces in front of it. So these are not just normal glass window pieces here. As you can see, that's just a modern wall. But it makes it look like the interior of the cafe has all been kitted out and is there. If it's not going quite perfect, the perspective and whatever, but it makes it look, if you're just glancing at it, you can kind of get the impression that there's actually an interior to the cafe there. So that's the sort of thing that I'm going to try and be doing in this town project. The rest of the building is pretty straightforward. This is limestone wall top and bottom. Brick corners. You've got more of these lovely stone pieces. This what is this? This is actually a fence piece, classic fence limestone. So I've just used that around the top. Got these lovely small brick windows. This is obviously the in-game writing pieces, the fonts. I thought they actually worked for this particular style that I wanted, so that's fine. Put some bunting up. This is a great piece because it's a cafe, so you get this sort of thing outside cafes. I've also put one of these up. I don't know why, I just like the look of this piece. What is it actually? It's an Indian fabric drapery, and I don't know why. I just saw it in the construction list there, and I just thought, yeah, why not? Let's put that up outside. It looks cafe-ish, with a couple of hanging baskets as well. So these hanging baskets are obviously the in-game basket, and then you've got a flower at the top here, and then this is just this bottom one is if I can highlight it, which I can't, it's a nettle turned upside down. That's all it is. So it's really not that clever, but no, I can't show you anyway. It's not gonna, is it gonna work? Yeah, there we go. Selection 2. What have I got selected? Oh yes, there's 2 nettles, that's why. Let's see if I can unselect. No, I can't. Anyway, that's all I've done there. I've just turned a nettle upside down and turned it around a little bit as well. So it looks like you've got some sort of hanging stuff coming out of the flower pot, and I've duplicated that over there. And then these, my word, these are good pieces. I was so excited when they put these in. So these came in the new European pack, and they're the restaurant tables. But you can use them anywhere, and they don't have to be on a path. You can just put them down. And then I think you assign them to a restaurant, and it's just like a graphical thing so that it looks like people are sitting down in a restaurant. But it just means that I could just use them outside for this cafe, and then just put a couple of canopies up as well. So they absolutely perfect pieces for what I wanted here to create a little sort of outside dining area for this cafe. So yeah, really pleased with that. I do get some more detailing done on this building actually, but that probably won't come until the next episode. The next episode will be a building next door here, but once that building is in, I then do a bit more detailing on this building as well. So at the moment it's just this front bit. I don't think I've done anything around the back on here. No, not yet. That will all come later. The door is just a simple door with sort of I've just put a couple of pillars in, made it look a bit sort of grand. A lot of cafes again, they do stuff like this just to give their sort of a cozy cafe, look, but you know, they try and make it look a little bit more impressive by putting in sort of these big fake stone pillars and stuff. So yeah, I was pretty happy with that actually. Oh, and the other thing that I did, like I said, I went back and just put a bit of detailing on here. So some of this lovely corner piece, this is a great piece. Look at that, it really looks like that stuff's been cracked, doesn't it? And it's all flaked off. So you've got a bit there, you've got a bit there. Also put a little aircon unit on the side of this building here, and I also put some on the roof of this building up here as well. And I think I just did a little bit of decal around the back. So again, you've got some cracked brickwork there. You've got a couple of lights here for when this eventually is an alleyway. So again, just a couple of lights on the back, and then a little bit more decal just there, and a little bit up here as well. So nothing too much, but it just adds little layers of detail, and it makes all the difference when you look at this. You know, one of the big things you notice is like this crack here, little details here, the aircon unit here. So it's certainly little bits of detail like that really adds a lot to an area. So I'll constantly be thinking of new things that I can do to my buildings to try and make them look better. But yeah, this cafe, very pleased with it, really pleased with how that window ended up looking. That's definitely something I'm going to do a lot more of. But there we go, I think that'll probably do it for this episode. Our first 3 buildings. So like I said, the next episode I do a building on the corner here, and then I do a large apartment block here. And I think that will probably be our next episode, will be those 2 buildings, because they're both a bit more complicated than these ones, or certainly this one here was. But yeah, that'll do it for now. So there we go, there's our little town. It's coming along quite nicely, I think. I'm really enjoying this series, so I hope you are as well. If you do enjoy the series, please do hit the like button. It really makes so much difference to the YouTube algorithm, where it actually recommends my videos to other people. And I would love to share these projects with more people. So if you can do that, great. If you don't want to, not a problem at all. It's entirely up to you. But I thank you for your time. I really do appreciate you coming and spending some of your spare time with me in these games. So thank you very much. Hopefully I will see you soon. Until then, take care of yourselves, and goodbye for now.